From the library of the New York Stock Exchange at the corner of Wall and Broad Streets in New York City, you're inside the Ice House, our podcast from Intercontinental Exchange on markets, leadership, and vision in global business. The dream drivers that have made the NYSE an indispensable institution of global growth for over 225 years. Each week, we feature stories of those who hatch plans, create jobs, and harness the engine of capitalism. Right here, right now at the NYSE and at ICE's exchanges and clearinghouses around the world. And now welcome inside the Ice House. Here's your host, Josh King of Intercontinental Exchange.
Bookended by a span of 26 years, two particularly poignant films shot key scenes in the Berkshire Hills of Massachusetts. At the end of 1997's Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon's title character heads west over the Mass Turnpike in the vicinity of Stockbridge, Lee, and Pittsfield in amorous pursuit of Skyler, played by Minnie Driver. And in the middle of The Holdovers, which is in theaters now, Paul Giamatti's Dominic Sessa and Divine Joy Randolph drive east along Route 2 from the Greenfield Millers Falls area toward Boston and a gut-wrenching rendezvous with each of their past. These are roads I know well. I've been driving them most of my life, most recently over the past couple years while my son was a student at Northfield Mount Herman School, where many of the holdovers scenes were shot. Director Alexander Payne made a point of showing how people live in the Berkshires and the work that they do, which is often in the education, healthcare, services, or the small business space. Whether a business is big and employs 1,000 people or small and employs only 10, integrating with the community is of the utmost importance to achieving success. Companies need to become synonymous with the areas that they serve, whether they're on the East Coast, West Coast, in New England, or on the Plains. In the last couple episodes, we've heard from business leaders like Panera Bread founder Ron Shaich and WEC Energy Chair Gail Klappa. Both they and other guests we've had on previously focus their home regions to kickstart their success. Whether it's Sheich's initial focus in Boston with En Bon Pain, or Klappa's focus on Milwaukee and the greater Wisconsin area, these two leaders, among others, strive to become one with where they started. Originally founded in 1846 in Pittsfield, Berkshire Hills Bancorp, NYSE ticker symbol BHLB, prioritized their home region. That philosophy has led so far to over 175 years of success. Now headquartered in my hometown of Boston, Berkshire Bank has become one of the largest regional banks, making its home in the Bay State. Our guest today, Nitin Mhatre, is at the forefront of the company's focus on philanthropy and business operations. Whether it's the employees giving their time to others or to the environment, Berkshire strives to make sure that they and the areas that they're in are successful over the long term. In our conversation, we're going to hit on Nitin's journey to Berkshire and the company's initiatives to promote sustainability and community improvement and build the geography overall through what banking always provides. We'll also discuss his leadership style and Berkshire's diverse team. Our conversation with Nitin Mhatre is coming up right after this.
Their grandfather once crashed an auto show by driving through a plate glass window on purpose. Their father was the most awarded SUV ever. And their crazy uncle raced sports cars and won. And while the blood of their relatives still runs true, none of them can do what these can. Introducing the next generation of Jeep Grand Cherokee. Available in 2-row, 3-row, and 4xe. The legacy lives on.
Welcome back inside the Ice House. Remember to subscribe to the show wherever you listen and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Our guest today, Nitin Mhatre, has been CEO of Berkshire Hills Bancorp, that's NYSE ticker symbol BHLB, since 2021. Prior to assuming that role, he spent many years as an executive in community banking at Webster Bank, that's NYSE ticker symbol WBS, which was a staple of Hartford, Connecticut, and the Connecticut region, where I spent a lot of years as well. Also at Citigroup, NYSE ticker symbol C, in various leadership roles covering consumer-related banking businesses globally. Thanks very much for joining us, and welcome inside the Ice House.
Good morning, Josh. Good to be here.
You were here back in November 2022, I think, to ring our opening bell. You and I were talking about your conversation with our head of listings, Chris Taylor. It's almost a year ago since now you and I are sitting down here in Lower Manhattan again to record this podcast. What do you remember about that day coming to the exchange?
Oh, it was an exciting day for me and our teams at Berkshire to celebrate our history of over 175 years and just be there to express ourselves as that purpose-driven, community-dedicated institution that we have been for those 177 years now. So it was a great day. It was great to see you and Chris and Eric and the team there.
I mean, you have not spent your whole life in the United States. You were born and raised in India, came here, I think, in 2000. In fact, when you started with Citi 1996 as a card sales manager, your areas of focus were focused back on the west regions of India. How did that upbringing on the other side of the world help you, your personality, your leadership style for where you find yourself today?
I was born in Bombay in India, did my undergrad in engineering before doing my business school. And somewhere during that journey, I kind of made up my mind that I wanted to live and work in different parts of the world, just learn and appreciate different cultures and hopefully become a better person for it. And when I did land a job with Citibank, it did give me that opportunity where I could work in different parts of India and Singapore and Guam and Missouri and Connecticut, and then opportunities to travel in different parts of the world in those roles. I think that really became the point where I became a good banker and hopefully a good person along the way. And I think some of the learnings that came prior to that was, I think engineering gives you wherewithal to think logically about different sets of problems. And just having been in different parts of the world gives you a better appreciation for how do customers think about same situations and problems from a different perspective, and how do you integrate that into your business model? So I think those two are the key learnings that I bring to practice every day.
A guy I worked for in the early part of the 20th century, Ramani Iyer, who was then president and CEO of the Hartford Financial Services Group, that's NYSE ticker symbol HIG. Ramani was a graduate of the IIT, the India Institute of Technology, would always tell me, how his parents, urged him and his siblings, to go out and see the world. Were your parents as influential, or was this your own call?
It was largely my own call, but my parents always encouraged me to always think about exploring and learning new things that I enjoyed the most, and I think that came along with it.
So prior to your job with Citi, you worked for Asian Paints, a national paint company headquartered in India. Obviously, long ago moved away from that field, but for the time that you were there, were there any lessons that did shape what you would actually do when you got into financial services?
I did, and I noticed that today's opening bell was Sherwin-Williams. And
absolutely, one of the great names.
It is a great name, and another paints company, and I thought I brought back the memories. And the one interesting thing I learned about working at a consumer goods company back then was really investing time and energy into understanding the customer needs and spending money on the research, which I think Asian Paints did extensively. And then the other interesting part was I learned 2 new languages while I was there just less than a year as a result of the travels that it took me within India.
You worked so hard to get that engineering degree, but you also added your business degree on top of that. Did that seem to be the combination that you thought you'd need as the whole package as you planned for the rest of your career?
Yes, I think that was part of my personal evolution, where I thought I was increasingly gravitated towards understanding consumer behavior and building that into a business model. And I think MBA degree certainly helped. And then later part of my journey, back in 2016, I got a chance to go back to business school at Harvard Business School and complete my general management program that kind of refreshed that thinking as well.
I also did a program for global leadership at HBS. Later in my career, it was a great refresher. So you had quite a good long run at Webster. What was the draw to ultimately be taken out of Connecticut and find yourself now, downtown Boston with Berkshire?
I think it just happened to be at a time when I was thinking about, I wanted to go back to a place where I worked for an institution that deeply cared about clients and customers and communities in New England, which is where now effectively I've spent majority of my adult life. And Berkshire seemed to be at a spot where they were looking for new leadership. And it felt like I could bring the learnings from both Citi and Webster Bank to a good place here and make a difference.
So let's talk about this company now a little bit. So as we talked about earlier, founded all the way back 1846, now moved its headquarters to Boston. I went to your website today, looked at where all the locations are, all those X's on the New England map. As the bank grows, how do you maintain the standards and culture that has allowed it almost 2 centuries of success? Obviously, it's got to move forward. Obviously, it's got to take care of new types of customers and new types of needs.
Yeah, I think it starts with the underlying principle behind everything that we do. And the simplest principle is you take care of your customers and everything else takes care of itself, right? And within that context, it's about how do you create that personalized, localized service to your clients while providing them with the digital tools that now everybody's getting comfortable with. And I think in terms of the geography, yes, we are in New England and it goes all the way from Eastern New York to Rhode Island and everything in between. We are increasingly focused on how do we deploy technology to provide that service while retaining our personal touch. In fact, we have that as a service mark. We call it DigiTouch, where you provide the digital services that the largest banks can provide you while retaining the personal touch of a community bank or a local bank.
So Nitin, I read the company history. I saw a couple different leaders prior to your arrival. You know, you come in as an outsider in many respects. What's your personal playbook for walking into a new place where you don't know a lot of people? And in some ways, you come from the competitor and you've got to sort of win friends and influence people.
Right. And I think the personal playbook doesn't change, right, no matter where you are. And I think my leadership style and values haven't changed over the years. And I think they're embedded into being authentic with everybody. Authentic leadership is important and crucial. And in fact, now there are big books being written about it. I've always been passionate about making things better every day and imbibe that principle into every colleague of mine. Be empathetic towards everybody that you work with. Be inspirational and draw inspiration every day, and then collaboration. And I think those 5 principles have stayed with me throughout my career journey, and I was able to bring them here, and we built a great team. We've had folks that have been with the bank for well over 30 years, and we brought in new leadership team members, and it's a great blend of seasoned executives and new leadership that comes in. I know you mentioned in your introductory remarks Panera Breads, and the ex-CFO of Panera Breads is on our board now. We've brought in significant number of new board members. Again, a good mix of seasoned directors and new directors. And Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, Karen Polito, is on our board, and the previous CEO and President of Federal Reserve Boston, Eric Rosengren, is on our board. So I think bringing that team together and creating that sense of energy and passion about our purpose and how that purpose can actually drive better outcome for all stakeholders drives not just me, but entire team. It brings us together and sets us apart.
So I was talking about my time spent on your website over the last couple of days getting ready for our conversation. And in addition to looking at the locations of Berkshire Bank, I also look at the mission statement. And I'm going to quote from it. It says, "The company possesses the strength and resources of a big bank combined with the heart and attention of a community bank." With those 100 locations, talk a little bit about the financial strength of the bank, and then how do you make sure that that statement holds true?
And I think the best way to describe that would be, if we look at the strength of the institution, that really, I think one of the key variable there is capital. And banks are in the business of deploying capital and allocating back capital to your customers and communities. We rank in the top quartile in our peer group in terms of our capital ratios. So I think that becomes a statement of strength. We have pretty solid liquidity, and we maintain that. We're proud of it, and we have a very robust enterprise risk management program that constantly makes sure that position of strength remains. And then how do you deploy that while retaining that personal touch of a community bank? And how does that translate into client experience with us? We track our what we call as net promoter scores. This is the percentage of our customers that are super fans, for the lack of a better word. And we are in the mid-50s. And I think anytime you're above 50, you're in a good spot. So I think we feel good about where we are and constantly improve that every day. So that's the perfect blend of strength and soundness and safety and soundness and on the other hand, delivering that exceptional client experience.
You know, exceptional client experience. I've been a longtime customer here in New York City of First Republic Bank, and they've certainly made their brand on customer experience, not necessarily on their capital reserves. But when you're in an engagement in one way or another with Berkshire Bank, if I'm walking into a branch or getting on the phone or on the website, what are the things that when you see it, you say, aha, that's really what I want to be seeing from my bank, from my company toward our customers?
And it boils down to something very simple. I think every client, no matter how big or small, wants to be treated with dignity and respect and feel that they're getting personalized service. So when you walk into a branch and you treat it as, hello, Josh, or hello, Mr. King, and here's how I may be able to help you, and here's what I've been thinking about your finances, is the kind of personalization that really doesn't happen across all banks, believe it or not. And I think we take pride in that. Then if you go onto our mobile application, when you open the app, it'll say, good morning, Josh. I think little things like that matter because that tells the client that they care about me. They think of me as an individual client and not as a number. And I think that goes across our channel. So that experience is what we call as the omni-channel experience of personalization.
So I want to talk about the 4 key tenets of Berkshire Bank, and starting with the push to fuel small business. Throughout the country, so many of these community institutions were hit hard during COVID-19. Some were able to survive, while others unfortunately closed their doors. What has Berkshire been able to do to help small businesses recover and thrive in the post-pandemic, especially as you think about those drives across the Mass Pike or Route 2 that I was talking about? So many restaurants, need these services, so many, small businesses, and you sort of look at them and you say, that it's not the same as it was before the pandemic.
It is. I think just like life, it's all about relationships and how you stay through those relationships in good and bad times. We ran towards our customers where things were tough, whether it was the great financial crisis or COVID cycle. We were at the forefront of PPP, for example. Our issuance of PPP to help businesses survive through that cycle was at about 3 times the average bank in the country. We also ran towards our clients post-PPP when they were going through challenges, just like you mentioned, the restaurant, the hospitality industry, and worked with our clients to help them stay viable. And to that extent, our rate of workouts and loans that were deferred were at the highest amongst our peers and across all banking standards. But that helped customers. And we ran towards them, and they'll remember that for years to come. And I think that's kind of goes to the spirit of who we are, and that's embedded in our DNA.
Community financing, philanthropy, also paramount to the initiative. And one of the pillars in this area is employee volunteer time. How are employees able to step out of the bank setting, maybe take off their tie and jacket, contribute to the betterment of the New England region?
We value that tremendously, and I think the way we describe it is all about time, talent, and treasure that we can lend into the communities. So time is an important element of it. We actually have what we call as extraordinary day, where we shut down the bank.
That's X Day, right?
X Day, extraordinary day, as we call it, and we actually allow for the branches close at 12, and the entire network of employees, 1,350 of them approximately, we go out in the communities and serve for whatever is your favorite local cause. And it brings a lot of energy. And I was there even recently at Cradles to Crayons, on which I serve as a board member to just help those not-for-profits constantly. And on average, Berkshire Bankers spends about an hour a week in giving back time to the communities. And we're proud of it.
Part of that mission statement that we talked about earlier also includes this, that no 2 customers are alike, and each person has their own unique interests. Often those interests come in relation in one way or another to where folks sit on the socioeconomic strata. What ways does the best community comeback positively impact those in the low and moderate income neighborhoods, as well as minority mortgage borrowers? I mean, so much of your early part of career was in the mortgage space. ICE itself is getting into the mortgage technology space, and helping folks stay in their homes is, one of the most important things, or find the best mortgage for them.
It is, and I think our Community Comeback program was designed to lend into the communities and invest about $5 billion over that period of time. We also became the first bank under $150 billion of assets to issue a sustainability bond, the proceeds of which were also devoted towards these causes. So coming specifically to the LMI, low moderate income neighborhoods or borrowers or minority lending, we start that right at the grassroots level. So first-time home buyers seminars and education and series, and our business leaders who run that space invest their time into doing that across our footprint. We have programs that are specifically designed to help those clients, along with the programs that the states have that we kind of distribute through our channels as well. So I think it's a combination of education, product, programs, and awareness that we're able to do a good job there.
In so many ways, Massachusetts is a progressive state, leading the way in environmental issues I've known for my entire life. Final area of what Berkshire Bank is focused on in terms of these 4 initiatives are protecting and caring for the environment through low carbon projects, the use of renewable energy. We've certainly seen so much coverage in the Boston area about Cape Wind and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. How can environmental responsibility help a business like Berkshire Bank grow off its success over the past 177 years?
I think it's not just the right thing to do, but it's also a viable thing to do to make a greater positive impact for all stakeholders in so many different ways. And it begins at home. So even our own consumption of energy, 99% as of today of the energy that we use is renewable energy, and our goal is to get to 100% by the end of this year. We then support the clients who are making that transition and help them into that transition and expedite that transition. Just to give an example, all of the office buildings that we have in Boston today, there is an effort to retrofit them to be LEED certified and be environmentally friendly. That alone creates a opportunity to be, I think, $10+ billion of retrofitting that has to happen, and we want to participate in that. So help the clients, help the communities, help the environment, and also create a tremendous shareholder value.
After the break, Nitin Mhatre and I are going to continue to discuss Berkshire Bank's commitment to the community as well as his leadership journey. That's all coming up right after this.
Connecting to opportunity is just part of the hustle.
Opportunity is using data to create a competitive advantage.
It's raising capital to help companies change the world.
It's making complicated financial concepts seem simple.
Opportunity is making the dream of home ownership a reality.
Writing new rules and redefining the game.
And driving the world forward to a greener energy future.
Opportunity is setting a goal
and charting a course to get there.
Sometimes the only thing standing between you and opportunity is someone who can make the connection.
At ICE, we connect people to opportunity.
Welcome back. If you're enjoying our conversation, want to hear more from guests like Nitin Mhatre and Berkshire Bank, remember to subscribe to Inside the Ice House wherever you listen and give us one of those 5-star ratings and a review on Apple Podcasts. So before the break, Nitin and I were discussing his path to CEO, his time in banking, and Berkshire's commitment to the community. The Best Community Comeback that we were talking about earlier before the break was announced as a multi-year initiative. It's now been 2 years since it's been introduced. Are the 4 key areas that we talked about still on track to reach their goals laid out back in 2021? You just laid out the environmental one.
On a percentage basis, if I were to approximate it, we're about 80 to 90% of the way there, and we should be able to complete that within the expected timelines.
Going back about 16, 17 months in the middle of 2022, Berkshire developed a sustainable financing framework that most notably included a first-of-its-kind $100 million sustainability bond. What's the significance of the bond, and how was it received among your customers and the public generally?
It's very significant as part of our commitment to sustainability. We were the first bank, as I mentioned, under $150 billion in assets-sized bank that issued a sustainability bond, and we also were able to deploy those proceeds within the first year anniversary of that bond. So I think that certainly helped our mission. And I think this is a core tenet of what we want to do. And in fact, we track our performance on those metrics in part of our ESG rating. And as it happens, as we speak today, Bloomberg, which is one of the 4 rating agencies that we use, along with MSCI, ISS, and Sustainalytics, we're rated number 1 bank in the country out of roughly 4,500 banks on the ESG disclosures, and number 2 bank in terms of ESG performance on Bloomberg ratings. So we're proud of it, and we believe that's the right thing to do, but also it creates a positive impact and stakeholder value.
And that's what Bloomberg is thinking of you. Some other media organizations also have their lens focused on Berkshire Bank. You're ranked among the most charitable companies in Massachusetts by the Boston Business Journal, also recognized as one of America's most trustworthy companies by Newsweek. We talked about this basic feeling that a customer gets when they walk into a branch or open up your app. But what does it mean to be recognized broadly in the community by some of these news organizations that put you up on a pedestal?
It just feels like a perfect blend of everything when it comes together. And in fact, we also were recognized as amongst the best mid-sized employers by Forbes. And I think what it does is we have happy employees, happy clients, and happier communities. And I think that's the perfect combination that we look for.
Broadly speaking, now if we pivot sort of to the guts and technology of banking, if you think about where you started in this industry at Citigroup and through Webster and now Berkshire, and the way we might have interacted with our financial institution, whether it was walking into the branch or getting a statement in the mail and trying to balance our checkbooks or look at all the transactions on a piece of paper and decide what to do with that. So much of it is now here. I will never probably walk into a branch again to deposit a check. I will take a photo of it. Reflect on sort of where you've seen the evolution of, the entire business model and the technology as it relates to the end customer.
It has come a long way, and you're absolutely right. I think banking was all about people walking into this grand building with marble flooring and big columns. That has changed. What hasn't changed is customers' desire to be given a personalized service, insights, and manage their finances through a trusted advisor. And the way you're able to deploy that, depending on how customers prefer to be banked, is how I think banks succeed. And we've been able to make that evolution, like I was talking about earlier, providing an exceptional digital banking platform, but retaining that personal touch. We also have a unique channel called My Banker, which essentially says that if there are situations where you do feel like you need to come to a bank or a branch and you are not able to, or if it's not convenient to you, we come to you. So as opposed to you going to a branch, we come to you, and we deploy that through our My Banker program, which has been incredibly successful.
So we've talked about how that bank has evolved in the past 30 years or so, since the 90s, in terms of its technology and infrastructure. The makeup of the people inside it, too, has changed. If I think about, the progression of Bay Bank to Bank of Boston to Bank of America, people like Chad Gifford, he was the quintessential banker, the white male leader, probably with a largely white male board. You're a diverse person. Your board has become increasingly diverse. What has been your own journey thinking about the diversification of the people in the banking industry?
I think diversification brings diverse perspectives that makes you think and feel like your client base that is increasingly diverse. And it also brings this new perspectives that makes your thought process stronger. And I think you're right. We are a diverse organization and proud of it. And 67+% of our workforce is women. 5 out of our 13 board members are women. And we're proud of the diversity that comes with it. And we've been recognized as such through Bloomberg and Human Rights Campaign for our diversity and everything that we've done for different communities, including LGBTQIA community.
We talked about some of those earlier episodes where we've had business leaders such as Ron Shaich and Panera Bread, Verizon Business's CEO Kyle Malady, Kamran Khan of Deutsche Bank, and others. And, we always talk a little bit about what differentiates their leadership style. You talked earlier about how you try to apply empathy to a lot of the things that you do. Talk about some time where, you were just brutally challenged and the decision really didn't come easily to you. How did you work through the problem, and what kind of people did you reach out to for advice and mentorship, and ultimately how did you assert your leadership in that situation?
I think there are many examples. The one that will stay with me for a long time is this was during the 2009 cycle when there was a significant rush by the banking industry for foreclosing on the mortgages to minimize the losses that the sector was anticipating. And I, along with my mentor and my boss, chose not to foreclose any of our customers at that point of time. And that was a tough decision because that was against the grain of what is happening in the sector. But it felt like the right thing to do. And it also felt like if we did that and if someone else followed it along the way, it might help the communities better. So this is when you reach out to people that you trust and admire and marry up the right conscience with a sound business decision. And decisions like that stay with you for the rest of your life that you could look back and be proud of.
Talking about mentorship and guidance and counsel, you talked about the refreshment of your board and mentioned a couple of them, among them the former Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, Catherine Polito, and the former president of the Boston Fed, Eric Rosengren. Until 2000, you were in India. You've been in New England for a long time, but a more recent transplant to Boston. How do you rely on them to sort of navigate local politics, navigate local traditions, sort of become a deep and embedded member of that particular community?
It is absolutely vital, and this is really in so many different ways. If I just switch gears a little bit, the beauty of America. I think this is the land of dreams where you can come, and if you're hardworking and if you do the right things, you can succeed no matter what. And then when you surround yourself with great people like the folks that you mentioned, Karen Polito and Eric and David Brunel, our board chair, and just everybody around us, it also keeps you grounded and connected and make sure that we do the right things for our employees, customers, and communities.
As we wrap up, sometime around now, a CEO will sort of, maybe on a Sunday, get in front of their computer screen and think about communicating to their employees about the way 2023 has gone and their hopes for 2024. And, in so many ways, for so many people, it's been such a challenging year. If you and I were sitting in your study on a Sunday and I was looking over your shoulder and you're trying to sort of think about this sort of last 12 months and where you'd like to go, what would you be trying to say?
It's very apparent that the banking industry is going through a significant change. And a big part of that is through the interest rate environment that has changed so dramatically. And the concerns that the streets have about the commercial real estate and the office space. So I think there are challenges that are there. Their regulatory frameworks are changing. There are new rules coming out about CRA and SEC. So it's been a year of dramatic and significant change. It's been challenging to that extent. And we're still not fully recovered from the impacts of COVID and PPP and the stimulus. I think the simplest way to look at this is it's always going to be challenging, but we can get through all of that and come out stronger if we work together and keep the eye on the ball, which is to always take care of your customers first, and then everything else will take care of itself.
You're 3 years into your tenure as CEO of Berkshire Bank. As you think about what Berkshire Bank may look like 3, 6, or 9 years from now, where do you see this all going?
Stronger, better, and making a larger positive impact in the communities that we work and live in.
Well, it'll be a great story to watch. I'm always happy to come up to Boston to watch it in person. And for now, just welcome back to the New York Stock Exchange. It's always great to have you here.
Would love to have you there.
All right. That's our conversation for this week. Our guest was Nitin Mhatre, CEO of Berkshire Hills Bancorp. That's NYSE ticker symbol BHLB. If you like what you heard, please rate us on Apple Podcasts so other folks know where to find us. And if you've got a comment or a question you'd like one of our experts to tackle on a future show, make sure to leave us a review. Email us also at icehouse@ice.com or tweet at us at IceHousePodcast. Our show is produced by Lance Glynn with production assistance, editing, engineering from my friend Ken Abel. I'm Josh King, your host, signing off from the library of the New York Stock Exchange. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. Talk to you next time.
Information contained in this podcast was obtained in part from publicly available sources and not independently verified. Neither ICE nor its affiliates make any representations or warranties, express or implied, as to the accuracy or completeness of the information and do not sponsor, approve, or endorse any of the content herein, all of which is presented solely for informational and educational purposes. Nothing herein constitutes an offer to sell, a solicitation of an offer to buy any security, or a recommendation of any security or trading practice. Some portions of the preceding conversation may have been edited for the purpose of length or clarity.